Recruiting is still taking center stage, and there's some interesting local offers that were just put into the mix.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. We'll talk about Gametime here in just a little bit. I want to thank you every day for joining us every day. Thank you, newbies, for joining us today. Thanks, everybody, for joining us making us first listen every single day. You know, on Sundays, I was just telling Jimmy I'm out of whack sometimes. It takes me a minute on Sundays because, we usually skip Saturdays, not off in the off season, but regardless. So recruiting was big this weekend, and Alabama had a lot of visitors in. They also had some interesting local offers. We'll talk about those in a second, but what can you say? What do you know? What do you think about the other visitors that were in town this weekend?
Well, as we record this, it's on Sunday, so they're still in town. All the I think it was 9 guys that were making official visits. There was an offer to one of the official visitors, the corner from that's committed to Georgia Tech, Jaden Terry. That's a super interesting offer because you've already got 2 corners. This kid is much lower rated than the other corners Alabama was interested in, and he's committed to Georgia Tech. That makes it interesting. But it's also a good segue into discussing Zay Harris, the linebacker from Hillcrest, Tuscaloosa, who was offered this week based on his performance at what amounts to a camp. Worked out specifically for the staff and earned an offer. And he's local. They've been looking at him a long time. And now he's going to officially visit next weekend, the final official visit weekend. The reason I think these things are related is because it's a new reality that not a lot of folks have caught on to yet. Because the house settlement is so new. But what comes to mind for me about both of these offers is we need to start getting used to seeing this happen all the time now at Alabama. And reason being, it's all the new rules, right? Alabama's going to have more lightly recruited kids on the roster like everyone else is, simply because you don't have to pay them what you have to pay superstar prospects. But you also have an entire roster to fill out. We've talked about it on previous shows. You can pay 85 guys something, or you can pay 50 guys a lot, and then the rest of the roster a little. Well, who do you pay a little? I want people to think about that, not specifically as it relates to these 2 kids. I don't know. We'll never know. We're not allowed to know. And frankly, if we did know, we probably wouldn't say, simply because they don't want that out. And it's kind of personal, and it shouldn't matter to anybody. You're either on the team or you're not.
It's none of your business.
Yeah, but there is a reality. There is a reality that with a cap, you don't have all the money in the world to pay everything these kids would like to have. So you've got to make budget. Think of it that way. You've got to make budget. So I saw some overreaction online to offers of kids who aren't ranked like many of the other prospects. But my first reaction is this is about filling out your roster and making budget, and it's going to be a new reality. This won't be Alabama. This will be everyone. And we just have to get just like we got used to some things in the NIL era, we're going to have to start getting used to some things post-house settlement.
No, I totally agree. And why this hadn't dawned on me before, that is dawned on me when it comes to the roster itself, when everybody's on the roster. Why it hadn't occurred to me during recruiting, I don't know. Now, and I think a lot of people are this way because I do a couple of shows with some big Auburn people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just some regular sports shows. And they've even been like, boy, Auburn just took a lightly recruited quarterback / running back from Mississippi. And they were like, okay, we'll trust the staff, but I don't know. And not one of us, including me, thought, well, maybe they're going for value here. Mm-hmm. And what's going to happen, I think, is everybody's class is not going to look like previous classes. Like every class will take a little step down, maybe on average in terms of star ranking, because everybody's going to have to, like you said, manage the budget a little more. And it's the same thing in the NFL, the NBA.
If you exactly.
If you want to go sign if you want to sign LeBron James and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, you're probably going to have a bunch of also rans on the team after that. No offense, there's also rans.
You've got to at that point have some minimum guys at the end of the bench. Minimum guys at the end of the bench. You have to. I mean, that's the only way to make the numbers work. And here in college football, roster size and players on scholarship are going up. So just imagine this. This is going to happen. I'm not saying it's happening right now, but this is going to happen. Kids that say their best offer so far, their best offer might be South Alabama. And that's their best offer. And South Alabama is going to offer them a scholarship and a smidgen of revenue money or whatever it is that South can afford. Some kids like that, Alabama is going to go to them and say, look, we're not going to have any revenue share for you. And there's probably not going to be a lot of NIL either. But you will have a scholarship and an opportunity to play in the SEC and an opportunity to compete for a spot. You will be given every opportunity to win a spot on the field against these other 5-star and 4-star guys that we're signing. So you'll have your opportunity and you get your dream of playing for Alabama in the SEC. That's going to happen a lot to fill out the roster. We used to fill out the roster with walk-ons. That's over. That's over. Or it will technically be over once the current walk-ons cycle out, because current walk-ons are allowed to remain walk-ons. They're grandfathered in to the settlement, but there won't be new ones. That era is over. The new walk-on is a guy that basically turned down some smaller schools to take a scholarship from Alabama, but he's not going to get revenue share and he's not going to get a lot of NIL. He's just getting the opportunity and a scholarship to play for a dream school. We're going to have to get used to seeing that happen. And by the way, this won't just be in football. This will be in all the sports. You will see this in all the sports to a degree.
Boy, it is interesting if you go back. I mean, the first thing when you bring up the other sports, you talk about basketball. Some people may not even remember this name. Excuse me. But I go back and think about if this had been in place for a long time, maybe somebody like a Jeremy Monso ends up on Alabama's team, who probably, I mean, I think he wasn't good. I think he went to Liberty when all was said and done.
That sounds right.
But I'm saying that he was like the all-time leading scorer in state history through all classifications and designations, because I think he played I don't think he played in the regular AHSA. He was AISA. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So
no, that's right.
The other thing is, I thought about when you just said that, like if I'm a South Alabama recruit, first of all, I think this hurts. The irony is, I think this hurts South Alabama type schools more than anybody, because now when they think, okay, we've got somebody, Alabama and Auburn aren't going to pursue this guy.
Right.
We've got somebody. Now Alabama and Auburn may be like, hey, look, we got our budget is such that, we can take a chance on you in a sense, but we're really taking you for value more than anything. But this is what we get offered.
And they're going to get hit too. They're going to hit two ways. They're going to get hit two ways too, because when they play the games and they produce a star player, somebody that looks like, hey, this is someone we want, we'll pay a lot of money. They're going to lose their best players to the SEC too for big money offers, like the running back they had that signed with Mississippi State this past year. He's outstanding, and he earned a spot in the SEC because he was great as a true freshman in the Sun Belt. So they're going to get whacked from, okay, our very top end players are going to leave for a lot of money, and our standard vanilla players, they're going to leave for an opportunity. So it's going to ravage the group of five, and it's going to eventually turn football into almost like a class system where you've got, in my opinion, the power two, SEC, Big Ten, the littler two, ACC and Big 12, then a step below that, the group of five, and even a step below that, FCS football. I mean, it's going to be felt all the way down as everyone's roster changes, but everyone wants to move up because that's where either money or big time opportunity is.
Yeah. But I think the kids are going to have an opportunity here to make a decision. Okay, I can go to South Alabama, and if I start doing well, then maybe later on somebody picks me up. That's but that's more of a sure thing. They may give me a little NIL money. I get an education. I'm sort of big man and on campus, big fish, little pond kind of thing. Or I can take a chance. Alabama's offering. They're not giving me any money. They're just saying, we'll have a scholarship, and I can come and see what I can do. And I probably won't play as quickly, and I may never play. But if it hits, it's the lottery. And so that's where I think some of these kids are going to have like this monumental decision. And
It's
again,
tough.
it's all unintended consequences, because the first thing I think of is, man, you're putting a lot of huge life choices in front of these kids more so than ever. It used to be, picking a school's a big life choice, right? But now you're picking a school not just for, it's not as easy as just like, well, do they have my major? Do I fit in? It's, what kind of money could I make? And
it's become even more of a business
lot.
decision. It's always been a business decision. Now it's almost the pure definition of one. It's a business decision that 17, 18-year-olds have to make that's going to affect them the rest of their life in terms of what they choose. The last thing I'll say, though, it's pretty neat. 20 years ago, this didn't happen. 20 years ago, if you didn't get your dream offers and you just ended up, I hate picking on somebody, let's just pick on Florida Atlantic, and this is your only offer, and you wanted to play in the SEC, but Florida Atlantic's your only offer. 20 years ago, you're like, well, I guess I'll play at Florida Atlantic. And then you go to play at Florida Atlantic, and whatever happened. Now it's not over. Now recruiting's not over. Now you eagerly go to Florida Atlantic because that's your opportunity to prove that you do belong in the SEC, and you can still earn your way in. That's the upside of the transfer portal is recruiting's never over, evaluation is never over, and now you're not stuck at a G5 school you weren't really excited about. You have the opportunity to get, for lack of a better word, a promotion.
Yep. It's the unintended consequences of all this stuff, and which was ironically, some of it was like, let's make it more equal. It makes it worse and worse. Like, it's like the Saban rules. Remember, everybody tried to do this. We got to have a Saban rule. Well, see, the problem with closing a loophole in a Saban rule is he'll think of another loophole. You guys can't think of it because
it's happening right now with NIL and the NIL Go. I mean, that's the challenge right now is we need to up the pay for some of these kids to get the roster we want. But NIL Go is going to reject these NIL deals. How do we get around NIL Go? That's what all the thinkers are doing right now, and I don't know the answer to that, but it's that they have the great minds at work thinking of that very thing right now.
Also, like you said, I don't like to pick on anybody, but Florida Atlantic.
Yeah,
what do you have against Florida?
I just figured
Atlantic?
We didn't have a lot of Florida Atlantic fans listening to the show, so.
There goes Jimmy just hating on FAU.
Hating on the Owls. The Owls hate me.
I tell you who you don't hate on. That's Gametime. Look, Gametime's the best. There's nothing like the NBA Finals. The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live. And this year's matchup are already delivering. If you want in, Gametime makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games, which is the finals. Prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off. That's what's cool. And with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Gametime is a total game changer. A game changer would have been a good name too, but Gametime's better. Listen, I got to give a shout-out to Ty Simpson burner account at RollTide13_, because this is what he tweeted to me and to Jimmy. He said, big shout-out to LS Robinson 21 and at QB Country and at Locked On Network. Going to see the Red Clay Strays on July 4th, and Gametime came in clutch. You know what? I don't know who the Red Clay Strays are, but I hope you have a good time, and I hope they defeat whatever team they're playing. So, yeah, that Ty Simpson burner account. I love that Ty Simpson listens to the show. But look,
wouldn't be surprised that Ty would go see Red Clay Strays, to be honest.
Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. It's all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, as they apply with everything, so don't get all worried about it. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app. Last-minute tickets, lowest price. And that's guaranteed. All right, I want to talk about the two new offers. That are, I mean, there were a lot of new offers, but the two that really stick out, right? Mm-hmm. Zay Hall, and we'll start with him first. And
I called him Zay Harris earlier. Zay Hall. Zay Harris. What am I doing with my life?
But I'm impressed that you remembered that you screwed up. I think that's step one.
As soon as you said Zay Hall, I'm like, did I say Zay Harris?
Yeah, I think you did, but that's okay. I just sort of zoomed past it. Zay Hall, and in this picture here, he plays for Hillcrest Tuscaloosa. Look at him. That picture is courtesy of Zay Hall, by the way. So I'm not stealing that from anybody. That's a Zay Hall original. And look at it. Look, dude looks like a good linebacker. I mean, just in this picture. I mean, good definition, looks fast, big hands, a lot of positivity.
Passes the on the hoof test, the eyeball test for sure. He's 6'2", 233, I think is where he's listed in some places. I mean, this is a prototypical inside linebacker build. Heck, he's a little bigger than some other more high-profile guys that Alabama's recruited at the position. I see nothing but upside here. And let's remember that this kid worked out for the staff. I mean, they had their eye on him a long time. They were impressed with him. He does have other G5 type offers. And then he worked out for the staff, and Kane Womack's like, you're a guy I want. And Kane Womack is, he's an inside linebacker guy at heart, even though he's a defensive coordinator. Chuck Morrell already wanted the guy. But now Alabama wants him. He's even coming in for an official visit. I won't be surprised at all if Zay Harris ends up in this class.
I mean, commit soon, Jimmy, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I won't be surprised at all if that happens. He's local. It's a great program. He's going to be well coached. He plays against good competition. And this is someone handpicked by them. And again, I don't know what his rev share or NIL deal is going to be, but what were we talking about in the last segment? There does have to be guys in your class that help fill out your roster that aren't as pricey as 5-star quarterbacks. There has to be to make the math work. And this is a guy, because of his offer list and his ranking, that probably wouldn't merit a Keelan Russell type deal, right? So, again, you see a lot of upside here. Won't it be great, Luke, in this new world where you have a lot of kids like this on your SEC roster, that a kid or two from that pile, and that ends up being a big star. And then, by the way, your deal changes when that happens. By the way, you have every opportunity to move up in that world too. It's not a 5-year deal. I mean, your deal can change as you rise in the world and become a starter. But just it's the nature of me. I hope everybody listening sort of agrees with this. Those are almost the kids I'm going to root for the most on the roster. Yeah. Those are the kids I want to see succeed the most, because so many of the 5-stars and 4-stars pan out as expected. It's not like I don't want them to succeed. I do want every player at Alabama to end up with as good a career as possible. But yeah, I'm going to root for Zay Hall for sure, because a bit of an underdog when you look at the offer list and his standing in the recruiting world. But Alabama's been looking at him for a long time. They've liked him from the jump, worked out for the staff, and they're like, boom, you are a guy we want on this team.
So that's one that got an offer that, again, some people are going to look at the ranking and think, but we explained it, and I think it's correct. And not only that, if they just liked him and NIL wasn't involved, he looks okay. I mean, again, everybody's like, you're basing it off a picture. No, I mean, there's some other things I'm basing it off of, but I'm saying, I'm like you, Jimmy. I think it's good to have a few guys like that. You build your whole team on guys like that, and you'll be Southern Miss. But you have a few guys like that, and then when they pan out, like you said, it's pretty awesome. So,
and then you're right. If you build a whole team like that, you have Southern Miss. But guess what? Every year, Southern Miss has a small handful of players that absolutely could play for Alabama.
Correct the window.
And you just got to pick the right ones.
The next guy is sort of like, well, I thought we had already offered him, and that's Trent Seaborn. And, again, just a unit. I mean, just a specimen. And also, I mean, maybe not the most athletically gifted kid you've ever seen, but when you're winning state championships as an 8th grader, it's pretty awesome. And all he does is kick butt. Now, yes, does it? By the way, he was at some 7-on-7 stuff at Alabama and at Auburn, I think, here recently.
Both.
And he threw a touchdown to Thompson as a tight end that's like 6'5".
He's going to be he's going to be a thing.
He's going to be a thing. And he dropped it in the bucket, and the tight end made a great catch. It was one of those, it's an awesome pass and a great catch. It wasn't like it's such an awesome pass anybody could have caught it.
It's very pro football looking, frankly, for high school players.
Exactly.
Look like what you see on Sunday.
But and so Alabama has officially offered Trent Seaborn. I think everybody thought, well, didn't we already offer him? But
the old staff did. The old staff had offered him. Yeah. But that doesn't really count. The new staff hadn't offered him, but now they have. And I do think in terms of prediction, there's a good chance that eventually Trent Seaborn ends up committing to Alabama. That's like a long-term prediction. I have nothing at all would be imminent there. He's got a lot of things to consider, but I do think Trent is sort of, I think he's sort of an Alabama fan. He's elite. I mean, Trent's elite. I've been a big fan since he was in the 8th grade. Again, Luke, he's not the most gifted kid in terms of athleticism, size, package, skill set. But what he is an absolute winner, a get-it-done guy, a win-the-game guy, a game manager, but a game manager in the sense of like a Manning, in the sense of like a Peyton or an Eli Manning. He's a game manager in that sense because he does have arm talent. There's no question he has arm. He has a great feel for the position. He's a very natural quarterback, sort of reminiscent of Tua in that way. And there's always going to be Tua comparisons because he was born in Hawaii, and I think Trent's mother and Tua's mother are lifetime buddies.
Aren't there some? I was going to say buddies. I thought there was some kind of.
There might even be cousins. There might even be cousins. Trent's mother and Tua's mother grew up in Hawaii, something like that. But there's a lot of connections there. Obviously, being Thompson, it's very local, but Trent's going to have a lot of opportunities all over the place. And, we'll probably talk about this on 100 shows between now and when decisions are made as far as 27 quarterbacks. But it's very interesting as it relates to Gunnar Rivers, from Fairhope, who does not, as we speak, I don't believe, has an Alabama offer from this staff, though he has a couple of dozen big-time offers. I've said it before on the show, and I still believe this. I think by the time the cycle gets here, the 27 group, I think Gunnar Rivers is going to be an Arch Manning level rated player and prospect, maybe even the number 1 quarterback and or number 1 prospect overall in the class nationally. I believe that's the case. But what's fascinating about the decisions for Alabama to make here, and again, they haven't offered Gunnar and they've offered Trent. And Alabama may like Trent a whole lot more than they like Gunnar. That's very possible. And there's evidence that that's the case by there being an offer there. But Gunnar doesn't have the connections to the University of Alabama like Trent does. And while this is a terrible analogy, and people listen, this will take this way too far, but just imagine if your choices are Drew Brees wants to be here. Drew wants to be here, but you might get Aaron Rodgers. You might not want to mess it up by chasing Aaron Rodgers all over the place and Drew gets mad and goes somewhere else. And now you end up with neither one. So, but that's what I kind of look at this like, because Trent is no consolation prize or second prize to anybody. He's a national elite quarterback, and it would be virtually insane, in my opinion, if that kid wants to play for you, you just say, done, home run. But Gunnar's going to be a super talented, highly rated guy. It's just almost a complicated, difficult thing for Alabama. But I don't know if Gunnar has natural, hey, I'm dying to play for Alabama. Maybe Trent does. Notre Dame is a school I've heard associated with Gunnar quite a bit. But we'll see.
Gunnar versus Seaborn is going to be a thing, and we got at least 2 more years of it. I don't know why I said at least 2 more years of it, like they could petition to play more high school.
I think it'll be a multi-year thing. Yeah, I think it'll be a multi-year thing. And by that, I'm meaning I think they're always going to be interconnected and compared to one another because they're going to come out of the same class in the same state. I think it'll be this way for a year. And imagine if one ends up at Alabama and one's up at Auburn, which is extremely possible. And I mean, both could go to the same place. Don't bet on that. But in this era, who the heck knows? But it's going to be great theater for all of you that follow Alabama and follow recruiting. This is going to be great theater in that 27 quarterback group because we're blessed in Alabama to have 2 kids who are nationally elite in Trent and Gunnar.
All right, Jimmy, I'm going to let you catch up with 2 of the 4 guys you sent me today on the roster countdown.
We'll do more in the next show. Yeah, we got to catch up.
2 now, 2 later.
Got to catch up. I've been on a little bit of a vacation. Came back. I did vacation right in that sense. I came back more tired than I was when I left to go on vacation. 49th ranked player, Red Morgan. I don't think we give him enough attention because, last year he played as a true freshman because we were a little depth challenged at that Husky spot. and DBs as a whole. We're I think people forget how last year's DB group was sort of being built, and we had to rely on true freshmen. Red Morgan made some great plays for a true freshman. He also got beat a few times, and if he didn't, it just wouldn't be football. Of course he got beat a few times. He's a true freshman playing SEC football, playing DB. Of course he did. I think any negativity out there regarding Red because he gave up a couple plays is sort of ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, what do you expect? Now, Red has moved to corner. Last year he was at Husky. Now he's going to be playing cornerback. That, in some ways, that's a more challenging spot. On the other hand, to remind everybody, Red Morgan was a safety at Central Phoenix City. When he moved to corner and played corner, that's when Alabama offered him. That's when Alabama saw him and like, we want this guy. So they've sort of liked him at that spot from the get-go. Pretty physical for a corner. He obviously has position versatility. He's already learned Husky. He spent last year in the safety room. This is a guy that as he gets older, I've always compared him to Malachi a little bit. I think he's a Malachi-type player. And let's remember, Malachi had great positional versatility. I think Red Morgan's the kind of guy who could help us out for all 4 years at various spots. Is he going to be a superstar? I don't know. Was Malachi? I don't know that you'd call Matt fourth-round pick Malachi a superstar. Malachi was definitely a major contributor for all of his seasons at Alabama and a starter for most of it. I don't know that Red Morgan's going to have Malachi's career, but I find their skill sets a little similar. 48.
I think that's fair, and I think another thing to say that's fair is, see, Malachi got some Zay Hall vibes. He was more highly rated, no doubt. But I'm saying local guy that people loved, that when you say he's not a superstar, you initially want to go, and then you go, wait a minute, he wasn't a superstar, especially compared to the other superstars Bama's had. But we would take more Malachi Moores. So if Red Morgan is 4/5 of Malachi Moore in his career, I'll take it.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think this is the guy you want on your roster. He can play special teams. He can play every DB spot. Somebody gets hurt, he can fill in because he can play here and there. And heck, as a true freshman, he earned a significant spot in the rotation. And he did make some really good plays. Trust me, I'm rewatching the season. Every now and then, Red Morgan makes a play, and I'm like, wow, I almost forgot that happened. But 48's a guy I know Luke's a big fan of because we talked about him more than maybe he's earned. 48's QB Reese. He had a buzzy spring. I think there's a race, a competition for the fourth inside linebacker. The fourth inside linebacker is going to be a guy you see quite a bit. We know who the first three are: Deontay Lawson, Justin Jefferson, Nakai Hill-Green. That's who you're going to see playing almost all of the snaps. But there does have to be a fourth, and there's a heck of a competition. But as of right now, it appears that fourth guy is going to be QB Reese. He's also got all the makeup of an outstanding special teams player. And I do think QB Reese, we're putting him at 48. That makes you a pretty significant player on the roster. That's what I think QB Reese is going to be this fall, a fairly significant player. Now, 2026 is going to be his opportunity to even earn a starting spot. And let me tell you, my comp for him, it's a bit optimistic. It's a bit like, I don't know, that's a lot. But I see some Sean Dion Hamilton in QB Reese. That's who he sort of reminds me of on and off the field. Sean Dion had some great intangibles. He was a leader. He was smart as valedictorian of his high school class. QB Reese is literally like a QB of the defense, little undersized like Sean Dion, immensely productive in high school at a good program. So was Sean Dion. That's why and similarly sized. That's where I'm getting that comp, and Sean Dion eventually became a starter, I think, in his junior year. Let's give QB a couple of years.
By the way.
We're good basketball players.
And we're pretty good basketball players
because they're very athletic, especially for that spot. So don't and QB Reese, an absolutely good example of the Zay Hall type thing. Because I think QB Reese and Zay Hall, similar recruiting stories, honestly. And boy, with QB, it appears the early returns are, hey, this is one we took a flyer on, and it's working out.
Yeah, and I was on board taking a flyer here, and I just hope he turns out. I hope he turns out just so I can be right about something for once. So, I'd like shove it in my wife's face, like, "See, I told you."
See, I told you, QB Reese. Y'all probably have thought about QB Reese 25 times at dinner.
All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.